Welcome to this demonstration video from Imago, the student software company at the University of Manchester. My name is Sam and I am one of several project assistants on the Cohere team. In this video, I would like to introduce you to Cohere and give a live demonstration of it. The general concept of Cohere is that it is a tool to visualise learning. The idea behind it is that a student will attend some sort of learning activity, such as a lecture, and then they will go out and do an activity that reminds them of that activity that they've learned about. For example, a student studying physics may go and see a tennis game, which they think reminds them of projectile motion that they've just learned about. They will then capture this with a photo, a video or some text, and upload that to some form of social media. From there, the Cohere system will find these posts and then display them in a way that shows the relationship between different activities and learning. Initially, the client intended to use WeChat, as a lot of the students on their course were international students, and WeChat is incredibly popular in China. However, we later decided to use Yammer, as this was provided directly by the university, which meant that we could restrict it to only university members and those who were invited, but also it meant that people will be more confident posting to a dedicated social media platform rather than using their own social media. Without further ado, let's get started. I would like to begin the demonstration not on the Cohere website itself, but on Yammer. I would like to start by briefly discussing how things are set out on Yammer and how our application imports the data from it. So the idea of Yammer is that you have these communities, which you can see on the left-hand side here. Now, the group we're using is the Cohere external group. Now, our client Mandy very kindly provided us with lots of sample data. So these are the sort of things that students may wish to post. So I'd like you just to have a look at a few of these images and maybe just bear them in mind, and hopefully we will see them later on when we go back to the Cohere website. So you can see these hashtags here make up the tags in the post, and then you have the main post body as well. Now, the way we've had to do this is the community is set up in the student group, which you can see here. Now, we've done this because it means that any student can join into this. We decided that we wanted it to be available no matter what course unit or general degree you're studying, so that we can see how different subjects tie into each other. It does, however, mean that any external users outside of the university and indeed staff members must be invited manually. This was a small trade-off, but we hope that it will pay off in the long term, as the alternative would mean adding every single student, which will be a much bigger job than adding the staff in. So if we move through into Cohere, you can see this is our home page. So I may wish to type a tag in here. So let's see what we had. We had unmaking, so we'll type that in like so, and we'll hit enter. And you can see it's just the one post, but that's what the same image as what you saw before. Now I can click on this, and you can see we've got the same post body from before, and we can also see the tags list here. We can also then view posts from just the user, which I'll come back to later, and we can also directly view the post on Yammer as well. So clicking this will then take me through to the post page on Yammer directly. This is particularly useful because for data protection reasons we don't actually store the user information anyway. So even though obviously we can see here this is a post from Mandy, we do not display that anywhere in the data. The only data we store about users is the unique ID that Yammer provides. So if we now go back to Cohere, here we are. If we click back on the image, we will now return back to this view users posts view. So if we click here, you will see that we now have the user and the unique user ID. In this case, this is Mandy, our client, who posted all the test data. And you can see this quite large cluster of data here. Now, as you can see, Cohere is actually what's causing all of these links. And this is largely why we decided to not use the tag Cohere in the end, because it created this rather unpleasant mess that we see here. However, if you put that aside, you can at least see these are all the posts that have been submitted by that particular person. Hopefully, if the Cohere tags were not there, we will see some sort of link for that particular learner. Perhaps they favour digital learning, or perhaps they favour things more related to sports, and you get that sort of insight into that student then. We can then move back and we can then look at the tags list. Now, you can also see that in the tags list here, you have two which are listed as hyperlinks. And what you'll notice is if I click this, you can now see we have both tags here. So these are now posts which contain the tags unmaking or the tag PC. There is also an option to make it so the post must contain both, or if we have more, it must contain all of them. However, I'll come back to that setting later on. So if we now go back to the home page, one of the things that we found difficult while testing was that it was difficult to know where to start. So when we were testing, we didn't know what was in the database already. So we decided to add these suggestions at the bottom here. So we have the top 5 most popular tags. So these are the tags that appear most frequently. And we have 5 randomly generated ones, which may well also appear in the popular list as well. Now, one of the things that we originally thought was when we were going to use a platform such as WeChat or Twitter or similar, that we would need some sort of general tag so that Cohere knows what to look for, and we rather cleverly came up with Cohere. So you'll see that the most popular one is actually Cohere because every post contains it. Because we later established a Cohere specific group, we felt that was no longer required. However, it does mean that I can demonstrate this all quite easily now. So if I click the Cohere one, these are now all posts that contain Cohere, and hence all posts. And hopefully you'll be able to see some familiar images here. So we have the child with the screwdriver that we saw before, and we have the ice skating one up here. And you can see that everything is linked together. So if I scroll to zoom in, we see that this picture of roller coaster and this picture of ice skating are linked because both of those posts contain the tag force. We can actually look specifically at them. So if I look at this one, you can see there's force, and it also contains these ones as well. However, no other posts contain those tags, otherwise they will be linked. Or certainly no posts that contain a tag Cohere anyway. If we click the edge, we can see that it does the same thing where we have Cohere and force. Again, this is showing OR at the moment. However, if I go into this menu down here and select settings, I can then change that to show posts with all tags. But on the settings menu, I'd like to just draw attention to the other options here. So if you wish to change the colour of the edges, that's possible from these options here. If you want to change the suggested edge colour, you can do that here as well. And I'll come back to what the suggested path is later. We also have the option to handle the root node. So originally in the design we had one central node which would contain Cohere and force. Everything would link to that particular node. However, as the data became more, this became messier. So we decided to go for this floating approach up here, which is what this refers to. You may also wish to hide that completely. And finally, primarily as an accessibility option, you can change the label size of the edges and also some of the text in the pop-ups as well. So if we come out with that, the page will refresh and you will now only see these two. These are the only posts containing both Cohere and force. So I'm now going to change that back again, which will make the rest of the demonstration slightly easier. Now if I wanted to go back up a level, I can do so by going down to this menu again and doing the go to tag option, and I can select Cohere, and once again I'll see everything with Cohere only. It's worth noting that if a post didn't contain Cohere but did contain force, it would have appeared in the previous screen. Now you may also notice that some edges have more than one label. So this post and this post contain sport, physics and acceleration, possibly others as well, but that is what links these two together. Now if I click this, it will give me a pop-up, and much similar to the go to tag menu I just showed, you can then choose a tag, and then if I choose sports, you will see we have Cohere or sports. Now the more observant of you may have noticed that some of these edges appear as red. Now one of the things that we noticed as the project went on was that if presented with just this here, it can look a bit daunting to start with. So we wanted to be able to give the user sort of a starting point really. So you can see here that this image here is highlighted in red, and then you can see that there is a path which goes to this image and then to, excuse me, and then to this image, and then to this image, and so on. So the idea of this is that it gives the user sort of a path to follow to start with. Now, we had quite a long discussion about how we want to implement this. Now, what you see here is just a random selection. So this post was chosen at random, and the path leading away from it was also chosen at random. This was mainly done as a proof of concept, but going forward we want to make it something more meaningful. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on. So, you can also see that from what I actually noticed before, that this is completely accepts physics, and it can be moved around, and you can scroll around in it as well. Finally, just as a little extra addition, this was mainly a development feature for us, but we've left it in because it doesn't do any harm. You can also see some small statistics about how many nodes were rendered, how many links were rendered, and so on and so forth. This concludes the demonstration of Cohere. We are extremely proud of what we have been able to achieve in the past 2 months, and hope that a future team of developers will be able to build upon it. For example, maybe they will be able to change the suggested paths feature so that rather than it being a random choice, it is instead decided by the number of clicks that a particular node has. This would then make it much more meaningful and useful to someone who is just starting to use Cohere. I hope that you have found this video and the project interesting and enjoyable, and from all of us here at Imago, it's goodbye for now.